so much for tuning in this Sunday at Mike's, 1st of March. Amazing. This time is just flying by. We've already reached March. And I want to welcome each and every one of you to the live stream. Um, going to be a little bit of noise in the background, but don't worry about it. I don't know actually how it's going to pick up, but shouldn't be too bad. It'll go off soon. I'm actually doing this from my dining room area, and I had to run the washer. It was kind of an emergency. Anyway, despite that, I think our sound will be just fine. Um, how's everybody doing out there? I hope you had yourselves a good weekend. Whether this finds you in the morning or the afternoon or the evening, I first want to start off by saying thank you so much for spending some of your time with me. It's always a great pleasure to have so many people spend their time watching this live stream. Whether you watch it live or in the rerun, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to do so. All right, with that out of the way, let me move over here to the chat. Scott, sir, how are you doing? Welcome, Scott. Welcome to you. I hope you're having a good one, sir. Scott, I tried to listen to that aquaculture link that you sent me, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to open it. If you have a different link for that, I would appreciate that. I do want to check that out. Mr. Watson, hey, all, Mike, your CD sounds great on my system. Thank you, man. That is so great to hear. That's all I wanted to hear because I don't have the best way of checking it here. And I want to know if the CD mastering place really did a good job, and it sounds like they did. That's great. Hey, Ben, how you doing? Welcome, sir. Welcome to you. Good to have you here. Cheers all. Huzzah for us all this evening. Being here, we made it through the weekend. Getting ready to go into another week, but let's pull back a little bit. Let's close the shop, take a drive, take a break from 9 to 5. It's so great to be alive. Oh yeah, let's get in that kind of mood tonight, if you don't mind. Did you like the album, by the way, Michael? How did you think of the overall, mix? I guess you're saying it sounded great on your system, then that means everything was well balanced. That's good. That's good to hear. Um, yeah. Speaking of that CD, as you know, I ordered a bunch of the CD jackets, I guess that's what you call it, uh, mistakenly from Temu, which I always say I'm not going to order anything from them ever again. And yet somehow, just like Michael Corleone, somehow they pull me back in again and I order it. And sometimes it's okay. Most of the times I'm disappointed. And as you know, the cases that I ordered had these little cracks in them, all of them. Uh, they have a great refund system. They basically said, "Hey, we'll just keep it, and we'll refund you the difference," and that's fine. But it still left me with some cracks in the cases. So I ordered some new ones, and this was in December, by the way, that I made these orders. I just got the new cases today. I'm not today, yesterday, and they don't have any of the fine cracks in them at all, but they don't have the clear inserts like I had designed my original design around. So I had to rethink the design. So subsequent CDs that go out will have this design with the signature card will be on the inside, and that's how they'll look going forward. But I think I began to understand why it's. First of all, it took months for this to arrive for me. And apparently that's how it is because not a lot of people produce these anymore, and it takes a minute to get here. And then I think that's a reason why CD production is slow and expensive. That really blew my mind. It took 3 months to get here. Oh, over 3 months to get here. That's crazy. Almost 3 months. But anyway, it looks good. I had to redesign it before I had the signature card on the backside. I had to redo it, but it still looks okay. So it's just crazy, man. To get the parts and pieces and things to do this. project was just it was interesting, And I'm going, now that I've got these, I got enough to last for a bit, but the first order, was just junk, and I don't know why I keep ordering from those guys. um, oh yeah, Uncle on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do believe I will have a conversation with Uncle Carlton about that coming up here shortly. Yeah. I did. I bought the digital version last year and have listened to it so times in my truck. Great job. Thank you. Yeah, it's just that CD mastering because, they can do it and then something will happen. But he did a good job, apparently. So that's good. That's good. I will continue to use him going on in the future then. The customer is satisfied. So I'm satisfied. So yeah, that's good. That's good to know because again, the cost of printing those, um, if you don't want to do large batches, can be excessive or not well done. So I got lucky. I found a guy who would do it. Um, Chances are he'll retire next month, but oh well. So yeah, so anyway, that's solved. But boy, howdy, all the bits and pieces from here and there and everywhere in order to put this together. But it's a good thing because if it sounds good and it's working out for you, everybody who's interested, you can go over to my Bandcamp page, take a look. You can buy physical CD, just like this one. I'll send it to you. And enjoy it, guys. Enjoy it, please. Thank you so much. I'll find another source for that, Mike. Great story, very inspirational. I would indeed like to check that out if you could, Scott. So thank you so much. Um, why fewer musicians want to go pro anymore? I was watching a YouTube video, and the YouTube title was "Young Musicians Are as Soft as Undercooked Chicken" or "Undercooked Fried Chicken" or something like that. I hated the metaphor, but I was intrigued with the thought about why an older musician would say that, what his thoughts were. A lot of it was, again, I think people do a lot of self-reflection on YouTube that under the guise of, again, being knowledge, but it's just hindsight. Again, that we see a lot of that. But nothing a whole lot there. But it did inspire me to think about that notion that musicians are lazy or people are too lazy to want to take up an instrument has been one that I've been hearing recently around a circle of my friends. I have one friend who has a child who's in, I guess, would be the equivalent of high school at this moment. And they need to put together a class for teaching classical instruments. They need 10 students and they're short a few, and fewer parents are encouraging that. And then, of course, um, on the other hand of that, with the lazy part, uh, those who are interested in music these days are really taken to the AI. It's so much easier to make a song on AI than it is to actually sit down and pick up an instrument. And this thought really is interesting because it's often coupled with, and we're talking about young people too, obviously, is that they're distracted. And again, just an unwillingness to want to put the work in. And that's what that YouTube video that the guy was talking was basically about, not wanting to put the work in And and he was a church musician, and the kids would come up and want to play, and he would say to them, you're not good enough to play. you know and that's the worst kind of musician. I ran into a lot of cats like that when I was coming up. A lot of cats like that. An arrogance that musicians take sometimes is astounding to me. A little bit of talent and a lot of ego. It's like the Eagles used to say, a mile wide but an inch deep. And I immediately said to myself, well, this guy is not not a positive role model, and certainly not somebody that should be in the position to make those kind of decisions. Because you don't say that. At the very least, if they aren't sufficient to play, you say, hey, right now, I think you got the right spirit. Let me work with you in order to approve you so we can get you up on the stage one of these days. You say those kind of things, positive reinforcement. And so I don't think that's true. I don't think that people don't want to put the work in. And I think that what really has happened is something that's far more uncomfortable. And people have taken a look at the new landscape of music. There was the old school of music. I had some friends over today. I was explaining to this younger, in their 20s, and a couple. And he was curious about the music industry. And I was explaining to him the old music industry, of the 90s, or 2000s before that, before streaming. And I was talking about that landscape and how with physical CDs, there was a tangible product that drew people in. And when you have tangible items, things that you can hold in your hand, that 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 transition between your touch, sense of touch, and your brain, make it something special to you. And certainly, if it's something from a group or a band that you appreciate, it means even more to you. And we lost that with streaming. And when we lost the tangible, you know, which you could put a price tag on and had value, and started pricing music in the intangible realm of streaming, then a lot of folks now are starting to look around and see what going pro actually means, and made the rational decision not to pursue it. Because these days, why would you? Not out of stop of loving music, but because the premise of it all changed. And it's just not what it used to be. And it's not something that you can hang your hat on either. Okay, nothing going on in the chat to catch up with. That's good, guys. Talk freely amongst yourselves, please. For a long time, going pro didn't mean fame. It meant a steady job. You played in a club, you played in a bar, you played with touring musicians, you did what I did. You went to Japan and you played in small clubs and then big clubs and then some large clubs. And if you're good, you got called back. And you didn't have some guy like that guy that I was mentioning in this video saying, you're no good. We don't, a gate, that kind of gatekeeping, again, like I said, only exists at a certain level. At a pro level, that kind of things don't happen. So that also is another indicator that guy's not a professional. professional, although he professes to be. Because if you showed up prepared, you know, you stayed working. You know, everybody loves John Paul Jones, but John Paul Jones came from a family of musicians that did it as a living. His old man was, a musician, and it ran in the family. And that used to be a family trade that a lot of cats that we don't know about their names, unless you come across it somehow, some way, were quietly living in that profession and making recordings, playing in clubs, playing for bar mitzvahs, whatever, and it was a living. And if you build trust, work built up. In the LA scene, they give you a project. If you pull it off under budget, and even if you gave them a little extra cherry on top, an extra mix or something that you somehow pulled off, and they liked it, they called you back. When I did my first, you know, remix for Motown, Reggie Andrews basically said, "Hey, man, it's not. You shouldn't be concentrating on this mix. You need to be concentrating on the next one." And I didn't understand what he was saying until I was sitting in that studio and I began to realize that he was basically saying to me, get through this one, get it done quickly, do it right so that you can get to that next one. It used to be a trade. It used to be that kind of thing. And again, because I did it well and because I did it right, they called me back to do other ones. And that led to other people in the industry hearing about, oh, that Mike guy, he's okay. You can bring him in. And I got into doors. That's how I started working for Babyface, because I got the okay from other people over at Motown. And you build and if I had stayed in LA, if I hadn't decided to go off to Japan, then I would have continued to climb up in that system. Even when I came back to LA, for those brief periods after my first few tours of Japan, I would come back and I was doing mixes, and that was through my connections for a lot of groups. And that's how it kind of, because people knew who you were and you did the work, you did under budget, and it was a system that you could count on, you know, especially if you were in. And don't let it, you're not going to make crazy money, but you'll make a good living. Problem is, I saw a lot of guys, they would get a big check sometimes and they would go crazy and they'd buy a BMW or whatever. And then there'd be a period of time when things would dry up a little bit because that happens. There's cycles to it. And all of a sudden, that BMW is looking like, a gold albatross around their neck. So, you don't expect riches. You just expected momentum, momentum. And there was a ladder. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a visible ladder. You say, "Oh, if I, okay, I see how this works. I understand how this works now." And you climbed up. You had skill, which led to an opportunity. The opportunity led, if you did it right, led to a reputation. And the reputation that you developed, if you were the right people, led to sustainability. And that worked on all levels. Again, that is the map to the pattern. Even when I got to Japan, they gave me the gig. Did I show up on time? Was I drunk? No. Did I cause any problem? No. Was I pleasant with the staff? Yes. Did I follow instructions? Yes. Did I play? All those. Did I know the songs? Did I take requests? All those things. And it got a good reputation, and they asked me to come back. So again, it's not glamorous, but again, it's visible, and that mattered because most musicians live or want to live or okay with living very modest, quiet lives. doing what they love, but making a modest, but quiet living off of it. I certainly was one of those. That was my kind of thought. So there's that. Um, when I started out, Phineas, how you doing, sir? When I started out, there used to be a benefit to having a skill and a good attitude. Now there's little return for raw talent and attitude. Now marketing you. And yeah, we're going to talk about that, Phineas. Good evening to you too. Also, towards the end of my full-time career, people started playing for free. Yeah. Dig that. I saw that too. I saw that. I started, and essentially in those clubs in Japan, especially like the Suki, some of the ones that I played in Tokyo, um, they would give you the front door, but they wouldn't give you the bar. Or, and it depended upon you had to negotiate that. Or they would give you nada, neither one if you didn't have any leverage. And that was when that started to turn up and be a little bit more of a thing that I was hearing around. I was like, I'm not, no, don't even ask, because it's not going to happen. As if we're doing them a favor or they're doing us a favor. I'll check that out, Scott. Thank you. The money isn't with music now. Yeah, BBT legit. How are you doing? Good evening to you, sir. Welcome to the chat, sir. Yeah, everyone can't be a star. Yep, 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 yep. You know, but again, that wasn't the thought. That wasn't the. I'm trying to take you guys back. Let's go back, shall we? To a time that things were much gentler. And this time was where musician was a profession, and it wasn't about becoming famous. Of course, you had to have stars, but when you get into the background of what star that word means, then you understand that's something else. No, this is about an occupation, and the latter these days just didn't disappear. The ladder broke. The ladder broke. And that's interesting to me because I feel sorry for those who didn't get to experience, even that time, how interesting it was. It was wild. It was wild. And I just really think that when we changed over to the streaming system because of different things we've talked about in other past discussions, that things really changed. Things really changed. And not for the best. Not for the best. As was being pointed out here, the system now doesn't respect experience or even necessary talent. It's a system that looks like this. It's massive competition because you have everybody now inputting. You don't have any gatekeepers to limit that. And as a result, it's really driven down the paychecks. In the 90s or early 2000s, if you sold a CD for $9.99 and you were on a label, generally you would get about 25 cents per every CD that was sold. That was your cut as an artist. And depending upon this, songwriter splits and all those things. But now, how can you split a fraction of a penny? People will that rap line trying to make a dollar out of 50 out of make trying to make a dollar out of 50 cents? That's talking about that. That's saying that, we're only getting 50% off, out of this CD sale, we're only getting 50 cents. You know. And so we got to try to make that whole and make that work so that we can get rich. So the payouts are now we get to split a fraction of a penny amongst those same people. And dependency on platforms, again, that great funneling of you into platforms, and also the constant visibility pressure. Always got to be posting, always got to be putting something up, you always got to have content, whether it's good or not, doesn't matter, just got to be there. And of course, there's no insulation from burnout because you're not making enough where you can say, you know what, I'm going to take a week off, guys, and go take a vacation in wherever. No, there's no, there's just nothing there for you to earn enough in order to have that kind of career trajectory where you could do those kind of things. The BBG legit says people don't understand it takes a lot of practice and skills to be a good musician. Now people don't want to pay you gas money to even make it to the gig. Yeah, because they've been psychologically desensitized. They've been psychologically neutered. Oh, that's the word I'm looking for having any kind of respect for art. When you take art and you drive it down to where you're giving it away for free, which is essentially what's happening now in all formats, all forms, film, movie, whatever, music, then people don't have a respect for it. When I was younger, we respected musicians because we knew that, as a matter of fact, there was, how much is it going to cost? How much are you going to charge? Can you give me a discount? Now it's like, what, you want me to pay for you to come here and do the gig? That's a completely different environment. Completely different environment. Finney says, well, there are not more producers from a traditional sense. Part of the reason things get out of control, the fact is artists are generally bad business people, does not help. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with it. But again, if you're a music label and you got some kid walking through the door that doesn't know, his ass from his elbows, and you're seeing nothing but dollar signs off that guy because you can rip him off. That's the age-old story. But again, if you neuter people's respect for art and its value, then it's just going to be a natural race to the bottom. That's why cassettes out of a trunk made sense, and made sense as well. Not more, no more. Yeah, I got you. Exactly. They took advantage of artists. Yeah, that's an age-old story. But the work didn't get easier. It just got less stable. And going pro has also shifted from that this is an occupation to being something else. You've got to be a musician, you got to be a marketer, you've got to be a content creator, you've got to be a community manager, you've got to be a brand strategist. You got to start wearing all of these hats. That's not a career ladder. That's like a lifestyle description. And that's not, and by the way, it's not an attractive lifestyle because again, it's a treadmill. It's a treadmill. Treadmill. And So people are saying, you know what? I'm good. I'm done. I'm good. I don't need to be, you know, involved in a career in the music business per se. Um, they looked at the economics of it and said, no, this is not working. They looked at the mental load of it because of the load of the work and the economics of it. And they said, no, no way. And they looked at the constant, performance of relevance. I guess is a good way of putting it. The performance of relevance. You guys know what that means? That means, doing things. Oh, here's a good example. There's this guy named John who called himself Johnny Somali. He was a YouTuber and he was going through Japan and Korea and Asian countries and being a jackass. And that was him trying to be or stay relevant or become relevant through his performance of relevance. That's what this is about. And that's a different thing from performance of skill or art or talent, something to offer, by the way. And eventually he did too egregious of a thing, and they locked him up for 3 years hard labor in Korea because he was so enamored with his performance of relevance that he needed to, not just doing it in order to get eyes on him. He had to ratchet up, the dumbassery. And that's not an attractive thing, however, to a true artist. You know, it's not a performance of relevance. It's a different vibe from what it used to be. You could say I still love it, music, but I just don't want to do that version of the job that it's become, and that's not quitting. That's actually just having good discernment. There's your knowledge right there. You know, there's no hindsight in that, masquerading as wisdom. That's looking at it at the beginning and saying that doesn't look attractive to me. It shows clarity these days. It's an unfortunate, as I said, it started out in this live stream saying it's an uncomfortable thing. It's an uncomfortable truth, but the clarity of it is why would I do that? Why would I want to have a career in the music industry per se? Uncomfortable stuff, guys. But clarity tends to come, unfortunately, with experience. And so you still have those out there who lack experience. And by the way, they may never have it. Either they'll have a lot of experience, not the kind of experience they need, and they will totally lack clarity. That will be lemmings for that particular course. However, again, a true artist, somebody, who has a different purpose in mind won't go for this, and rightly so. It's not about ageism, by the way, either. It has nothing to do like the other part of that guy's argument, um, you know, about young musicians being weak. When you start making those ageism statements, by the way, you're setting yourself up for failure anyway. This has nothing to do with how old you are. This is not sour grapes from an older musician. This is just laying out the facts of how things were, how payment scales were based at that time versus now, how those two different systems uh, are so dissimilar from each other that it would lead one who experienced the old system or not to look at the new one and say, hey, that's not for me because I don't understand that. Yeah, sure, older musicians are stepping back. Um, and younger musicians are merely looking at that and saying, okay, that model kind of sucks, so let's redefine what success is. So everybody has a role, but both groups are reacting to the same thing, either as an older musician stepping back or a younger musician trying to redefine what success means now, you know, what fame is in this new uh, system that we're in. Both groups are reacting to the same thing. And an industry that rewards exposure more than craft, honestly, is not a good one. And an industry that favors speed over depth is not a good one. It's not a good one, you know. So people were choosing smaller audiences. Yeah. I'd rather have you guys as my audience than a room full of people holding up their zombies. I just you know because it's direct support and the output is a lot slower. It's about to get even more slower than me, but there was no compromises being made in the production of my output. You know, not out of need of speed, not out of need of coming up with new content, nothing like that. Very thoughtful. But I think the younger musicians and the older musicians are both beginning to understand the trade-offs now. Let's see. Are there recording artist skills like in acting? Sure, of course. um, because never mind. I don't want to get that. That'd be a sidetrack. But yes, Josh Radcliffe, how you doing, sir? How old are you? How old are you? Well, let's see now. When I was born, they were just coming out with those steam locomotive thingies. No. I will be celebrating my 59th birthday this year. BBG legit says yes, there are, but they can't do anything if the record company owns your masters. Yeah, they can't do anything about that. No, they're there merely for some help with administration and mostly with any kind of health uh, 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 care benefits that you receive, pensions and things like that. So new music sucks because the business model killed it. No, no, it sucks because the new system killed it. Model killed it. It's not even a business model because it's it's not really a business. When you design something that's built upon infinite growth, and infinite growth isn't possible, then what is that? Notice you hardly hear electric guitar in music anymore. Yeah, hell, I would settle if I heard electric piano in music or piano. You don't hear a lot of that. It's weird. Like I said, I don't know what this new music is. I can't imagine stepping back because of my age. I'll play any place, anytime until I can't hold my guitar anymore. Michael Watson. Yeah, you know, again, you recognize the environment and how it's changed. And you can step back or you can keep with it, young or old, but you still are reacting or will be reacting as you go along to the system changing. So it's a good thing. in that regard to hold on. I chickened out. I don't know that, man. I got pissed because I just looked at the situation and said to myself, this is untenable. Yeah. So I don't think musicians stop wanting careers. I think they stopped wanting to be part so strongly in the performance of elements. You know, you know. Pro used to mean somewhat owning your time and somewhat keeping your rights if you were smart. Some guys kept their rights, some didn't. Some were muscled out of theirs. Some were hung off hotel balcony windows by their ankles to give theirs up. But still, there existed the possibility there. And the staying mentally intact because, you got to travel around pretty well, pretty leisurely. Um, Leonard Skinner, unfortunately, tried to pack too many people in one airplane, so that wasn't a great idea. But generally, you got to take some breaks in between cities, towns, and things like that. Now it's a constant cycle of production. So staying mentally intact is something that's important that used to exist. And making music that survives trends. Because if you're trying to get ears, then you're going to hire a female vocalist that sings in that very airy, vocalist tone that seems to be preferred these days, as opposed to a girl who can really blow, 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 blow. And no, that you sing too strong. No, that's not you get the girl that blows and you write some that came out wrong. Get the girl who can sing well. Freudian slip there. You get the girl who can sing well, and then you produce the crap out of that record. It might be a quieter life, it might be smaller, it may not look impressive online, but you know what? It's more in spirit with the way the community was as a career back in the day with John Paul Jones and his pop than it sure as hell is these days. And that matters more than optics. Optics, again, are you part of that performance of relevance? Is that your thing? Your performance artist trying to maintain relevance? The optics of that is very important, you know. So, it's not a crisis that, fewer musicians want to go pro per se. Because again, like I said, there's optics that are attached to that people don't find attractive sometimes. But what is beginning, I think, is musicians defining success on their own terms again, not what, the analytics tell you is a success. And honestly, that is in the spirit again of how it used to be. And what goes around comes around. It's never exactly always the same, doesn't always look the same, but it has the same spirit to it. So, you know, d- honestly, that's the most professional move of all is to define your own terms of what, success is, your success is. Not some metric, not some analytics, you know, not some likes, things of that nature. It's a weird thing, again, I was, you know, there's that. How old? I voted for Taft. Your mom was the Big Bang. Oh my gosh. No more Whitney Houston. Yeah, like I said, you know, you need the kind of record guys who are in the position to be around families that have talented artists in them or, know of and cultivate that kind of artist. That kind of artist cultivation doesn't occur anymore. And that's why the quality of the artists are low. Quality of the producing, the music, all that is low because everybody is recording their rigs on the same rig, overblown rig. It's just, ugh, it's just, ugh. And again, you have to ask yourself, am I going to be in the performance of relevance? That's what I'm going to start referring to it as, the performance of relevance. That Johnny Somali, boy, oh boy, can you imagine for likes on YouTube? And by the way, his sentence that he was the 3 years of hard labor is longer than his YouTube channel was up. All for the performance of relevance. 3 years hard labor means you're going to have to, in Korea, means, and I know this you're going to have to scrub toilets or you're going to have to dig ditches. And by the way, he's an American kid. He's about 23, 24 years old. He's going to get a crash course in learning Korean. I tell you what, if anything else comes out of it, he's going to have some cleaning skills and some language skills that he did not have going in. All for the performance of relevance. You know, every time Britney Spears, God bless her heart, playing the MILF role that we all knew that she would grow into, uh, puts herself up on Instagram. That's performance of relevance, or all the rest of them. Have Melvin in the Blue Notes, you know, featuring Teddy Pendergrass. Yeah, you know. So there is that. Um, I know it's ironic about my Uncle Carlton, the Hall of Fame, and me and my thoughts on the Hall of Fame, which, by the way, my Uncle Carlton, from our discussion, has, well, anyway, I'll leave that for another time. But in any case, I think that it's an interesting world out there. And again, you have to make a decision, and whether you're doing it out of art's sake or having something really relevant to say, or again, you're just part of the cultural performance of relevance. And it's unfortunate that that's where our industry, the music industry, has come to. But it is, you know. And if you don't believe that, ask yourself, why are so many 90s groups and so many producers and actors and actresses from certain time periods like the 90s and 2000s now have YouTube channels with their own, podcast interviews with other actors and actresses and musicians and performers from those periods? Because now, in order to stay relevant in the algorithm, they have to go into the performance of relevance. You know, it's just what it is. You can take it or leave it. Teddy Riley, yeah, you know, we can go on and on. But again, we're not in a culture where you can even have a Teddy Riley, because a Teddy Riley needs a system in which producers like him are required for certain projects within that system. This system that exists right now is a single for this artist or a collab for this, or that kind of stuff. That's not, that doesn't make producers like Teddy Riley, and certainly it doesn't produce the kind of music that a Remember the Time, for example, produced. Not the kind of environment, you know. And anyway, there's only 4 or 5 guys writing all these tracks anyway. And that's it's kind of basically true. And that was not always true either. So there is that, guys. Um, when I was a kid, growing up in Windsor Hills, the elementary school up there was Windsor Hills Elementary, nice school. And they used to take us in the school auditorium, and the lady, Miss, there were two, gosh, I can't think of their last names now. Anyway, would sit down, play the piano. All the kids would start singing this song. Did you ever get the feeling when you're reading the papers, the world is caving in, that the animal part of the human heart is finally going to win? But really, it is that what you see are the growing pains of liberty, and the world ain't coming to an end, my friend. The world is coming to a start. I feel it in my heart. And here it is. I'm some 50, from the point I was singing that song, I was about 5 or 6. So here my, half a century later, and I still remember the words to that and the sound of all the kids around me and our little kid voices singing that and the piano playing and the feeling of that auditorium. Whenever I pick up the paper these days and I see that the world seems like it's on hot ass fire, I'm always reminded that these are growing pains and things happen and this too shall pass. So I say that, my friends, because I care about you, one. And two, I like to present these podcasts for escapism away from, the serious things that are occurring out there in the world. And there are many. But this is our auditorium. We're all the little kids, the piano's playing, and we're singing that song together. And there'll be more of this coming up. This week, I hope to film. We'll see how this week goes. It could go great or it could be a disaster. We'll see. I got my fingers crossed on going great. But maybe I'll have some regular content. I do have some things that I want to shoot and talk about. And we'll certainly be back here for next Wednesday's live stream. Yeah, I'm going to cut it short here because actually I do want to give Uncle Carlton a call here after I get off with you guys and talk to him, because I meant to give him a call yesterday and I didn't. And I'll report to you guys what he has to say, and that should be that. I want to say thank you guys so much for supporting this channel always and showing up. Please hit the link that Scott put up if you're interested in going over to Asanoki Bandcamp and buying the Asanoki CD, guys. Buy yourself a hard copy of it. It looks lovely. Look at that, guys. I mean, this is nice packaging, well put together. Finally got, yeah, these are so good. They actually seal. That was the other problem with the other ones, because they open too easy. But, looks lovely on the inside. Talks about the album, how it was made. And in any case, lovely packaging now. So if you're interested in a hard copy of my latest album, please go over there and take a look at that. Support this channel by buying it. Mike Watson did, and he gave it the thumbs up. So it sounds like it's all good. So if you two are interested, it took a damn long time to get to the States, by the way, Michael. You had to admit that that is outrageous. That's crazy. That was a month. But there are faster ways. So doesn't necessarily here in the States need it's going to be that long if you order one. So take a look at that, guys. And I will see you again coming up this. Yeah. I'll see you guys coming up this Wednesday for the next live stream, the Wednesday Hub. You guys take care. Bye bye.